Okay, so back to our back once again to our article, and we're going to continue along on this. You know, brought out just a little bit, just a smattering, just a touch. You know, this idea of the trivium and the quadrivium, this old system of education. You know, it's so old now, we don't use it, as if everything that's old is no good, right? And there are very strong movements out there. You know, the Christian right is as opposed to what they call humanism as you could possibly imagine. Nobody could put that up on a billboard higher than Tim LaHaye, Council for National Policy. They were absolutely opposed to humanism, failing to understand what humanism is, unfortunately. Pointing to these old books, you know, Aristotle, Plato, and so on, as being, you know, pagan, right? Failing to understand what they turned their back on. And we want to be very careful about locking in on one concept, because when we lock in on one concept, inevitably we lock out others. So I like to approach the world with an open mind. Listen to everybody. Read anything. Believe nothing until you can verify in your own research, but the trivium has much to offer. Home educate your children. That's what they did in the early days. You know, raise them up so they know how to live and live right. Start them out with their grammars and get their grammar in order. Right? And then you go from there to what? To the dialectic, to logic, which is law. And then you proceed from there to what? Rhetoric. I mean, we're still talking short pants here. John Stuart Mill, son of James Mill, homeschooled, trilingual, doing logic and geometry by the time he was 8 years of age. We put young people into boxes when we send them off to public schools. They're not expected to be stupid until they've graduated high school. Up until that time, they can just have an experience in stupidity. The long winding road towards failure. Maybe they'll drop out as a junior in high school, not complete. It's good for statistics, lousy for financing. But again, we learn a little bit of law as we go along, a little bit about logic, a little bit about rhetoric, a little bit about debate, a little bit about research, and all these things together work in your benefit when you decide, finally, at last, to become vocal local and just say no to the expansion of ICLEI and Agenda 21 and the rest of the internationalist program of action for the 21st century as it comes into your town. But let's continue. The ubiquity of such associations has suggested to all writers on industrial combinations. You see, even at this time, this Encyclopedia of Social Sciences, written as it was, first published and copyrighted in 1934, considered by many as the writers and the authors of this as der Führer's professors. This is for the Hochschule for Politik, teaching political science to people that would, you know, have to reshape their government in Germany. But it was well known at this time that a combination was the same as a corporation or cartel or trust. The ubiquity of such associations has suggested to all writers on industrial combinations. You can also use the word concern. Everybody talks about, oh, the environmental concerns. Are you concerned about global, you know, man-made global warming? Or I guess we're supposed to say climate disruption now. Are you concerned about this? Is that your concern? No, it's not your concern, but it is the concern of Siemens and Vestas and GE and all of the concerns, the combinations of corporations that make environmental things as their form of business in commerce. All right? Environmental and developmental concerns are businesses, they're corporations. Of course, the Sierra Club and the World Wildlife Federation would have you sit there in your lazy boy and fan through their glossy rotogravure magazines and be alarmed about the polar bears that have to swim from iceberg to iceberg doing a backstroke looking for a nice iceberg to clamber out upon to eat their baby seals for breakfast. Again, the ubiquity of such associations has suggested to all writers on industrial combinations the need for some general explanation of their existence. And we scratch our heads when we look at the corporation nation and we go, what's Cliff telling us? What are we learning in these DVDs? We have a need for general explanation of their existence as distinct from the peculiar circumstances obtaining in particular industries. What's going on with OPEC? Why is gasoline and diesel going up in a town near you? Why is the cost of crude oil going up? Here in the United States, crude oil at $105.19 a barrel, these 42-gallon barrels of light sweet crude delivered in Cushing, Oklahoma, as they are, as we open the broadcast with every day. Why is our crude oil prices going up when there's just a little bit of friction going down in Libya? Libya putting on 1.8 or 1.9, maybe as much as 2% of oil into the European market, light sweet crude that it is itself, has little or no bearing on us. And yet, due to the speculations in the marketplace, the opportunity to make a profit off the people one more time, the opportunity to further advance an agenda, a synthesis you may not be aware of, we're looking at an antithesis. A thesis is the revolutions and the disputes over in the Near East as they create the Mediterranean Union. And out of this thesis comes the antithesis. Oh, this is all the blowback. These are the people with the cell phones and the Twitters, right? And what's really happening, the synthesis, going to drive up the price of oil in the U.S. Why? Because the environmental and developmental concerns have been damaged severely by broadcasts such as this and the work of Michael Shaw and Tom DeWeese and other people, Henry Lamb, because we've exposed Agenda 21 and have been exposing it for a decade and shown it to be nothing but a charade. And they're hurting. But what they want to do now is they want to come back and start opening up and exploring and marketing the oil in this continent. And in order for them to achieve that, they need to drive that price up, and they're going to drive that price up. It's artificial scarcity. There's a superabundance of oil, not just in the United States and in Alaska, but in all around the world. There's no reason for us to be involved with the OPEC system at all that could easily handle what the needs are there for the Near and the Middle East and the Far East. But we're locked in, and we don't understand why. And that's why there is a need for some general explanation of their existence. And we'll continue. The most common points of reference in such explanations are the rising importance of fixed capital investments. You get quite the dandy tax credit this year if you make fixed capital investments, by the way. The steady accumulation of new capital funds, despite the chronic existence of unused productive capacity. What's unused productive capacity? That is this baked into the cake unemployment level in the United States. Why, we just don't feel good unless we have 5, 10, maybe 15% of the people unemployed at all times. That stimulates the labor market. That keeps the disgruntled down to a mild roar. When you know that there's always 5 or 6 or 8 wolves waiting to snap up your job slot, you're less likely to object or complain. You're more likely to be there on time, ready to turn that crank. You brought your coffee thermos and your lunch bag, and you're ready. Because you know that there's 5 guys out by the gate who are ready to take your job the moment you lay your tools down. Continuing, the steady accumulation of new capital funds, despite the chronic existence of unused productive capacity, the gradual disappearance of the frontier, and settlement of the country. Now, settlement is an important word. You know, that's what's happening over the West Bank. Settlements. Settlements. The appearance of the frontier. We got a full boatload of that in my youth. John Wayne movies and everything like that, you know, cowboys and Indians playing that. Westward expansion, wagons, ho! All the novels and novelettes and novellas published on that regard, the love novels and things like that as they went out and they farm, you know, what was it, Little House on the Prairie, yeah, John Boy, good night, John Boy. Settlers, frontier, with a corresponding decline in the rate of industrial expansion. Have you noticed a decline in the rate of industrial expansion here in this country? The instability of prices, I thought that was what the Federal Reserve banking system was for. The instability of prices and of general economic activity. The development of new techniques and substitute commodities. Substitute commodities, would that be ethanol? Wind turbines. Don Quixote's little wind turbines. You ever looked at the cost-benefit analysis on those things? How much they cost? and how much they have to be subsidized by the ratepayers? Wow. Free energy? Guess again. It is probable that the adequate explanation lies much more in the direction of attempted maintenance of profitable operation in the face of a highly dynamic technological and marketing situation, in that of deliberate monopolistic exploitation of who? You, the consumers. Now we're starting to get down to what the trusts are really all about.